that is like a significant percentage of most of them are those two reimbursements plus 18 months to 2 months. So they're going to wipe out a lot of revenue for these companies, including us,
right?
And wipe out a lot of back refund ability for people who haven't done the claims yet. So, shameless plug, but you should check out and do your claims in the next, whenever this podcast comes out, 2 weeks.
This is Brent Zaradnik. Welcome back to another episode of our Beyond PPC podcast, where we feature guests that are coming on the show to share things with us that are beyond PPC. So we're not talking about advertising today. And we're having on our guest, John Cavendish, who's actually a repeat here. Hello, John.
Hello. You just told me I was a repeat. Apparently 2.5 years ago, I was also here.
That's right.
So don't
That's
repeat
right.
anything which I said 2.5 years ago that I can definitely remember.
These are all totally different questions. And as you know, Amazon changes every 6 months. So it's like there's 3 different Amazons since you were on last time, and things have changed. I'm sure your company's changed, your clients have changed, the marketplace has changed. But it's good to catch up. And we'll be catching up in person soon too, actually. So very exciting. John,
Sure.
You're the founder and CEO of Seller Candy. And I was on your website looking around, and you guys have the greatest tagline. You say, "Never talk to Amazon seller support ever again." What a great tagline. So what you guys do, if I understand correctly, you focus on getting the details right for the, let's call it more unappealing sides of Amazon, the must-do tasks, and the occasional emergencies that come up in the marketplace. And for companies that are selling on, Amazon. Is that correct? Is my read on that correct?
100% correct. And I thought you were going to make a pun about unappealing because we write appeals as part of that. But no, basically anything you raise a case about, whether it's calling Amazon, doing flat files, think of us like your most amazing, most competent executive assistant, personal assistant, who's like an absolute expert in Amazon.
I like it. Okay. Now, let's get into the questions. So what are the most common problems that you guys are solving now in late 2024? Last time we spoke more than 2 years ago, it was different than it is now. So what are the big things that are trending? What are the problems you see the most issues with?
Well, I mean, as you know, in the last 2 years, Amazon support has got so much better and so much faster and so much, no, it's worse, isn't it? It's far worse. So in some ways the same, and in some ways even more, because what we used to do was a lot of more high level stuff. So a lot of appeals, a lot of getting ASINs unsuspended, getting them back up and running, dealing with those advanced technical problems. And we still do all of that. That's still a big part of our bread and butter. Also now in the last 2 years, Amazon's locked down listings a lot, haven't they? Like trying to make changes to your Amazon listing is a pain. They want a lot more flat file uploads, a lot more, calling or contacting seller support to push changes through on listings because things have been locked down. So we do a lot of that as well. So creating flat files and feed files, updating listings, calling support, figuring out why something isn't working. Like why listings aren't being, merged properly, why reviews aren't sharing, creating parents, like basically all the technical stuff. We've got a whole menu of services actually on our website you can check out if you're listening to this, which has a whole kind of list of all the stuff we can tackle.
Yeah, 2 things I want to highlight there. The one is the calling Amazon support. So we run into this recently as an agency because we've been expanding our service set a bit more and helping folks with the flat files and everything. So we've been dipping our toe in there. And I've noticed on my team, maybe it's like a younger generation thing, but some people have a real averse reaction to calling anyone. Calling Amazon sounds like, oh my God, am I going to have to wait on the phone for how long?
Yes.
And what kind of response am I going to get? Are they going to send me through the phone tree? So that's great that you guys do that because there's a real adversity to calling, it seems. And a lot of our clients also don't want to call Amazon. That falls on us when we're helping them with that service.
So just reflect on that. You were saying about calling, just as a tip for your team and for our team and for anyone, because we've got a lot of ex-Amazon seller support agents. We literally hire out of Amazon seller support, and that's how they get a lot of their initial battle scars and training from Amazon. Is if you're going to call support, try and have done the previous steps first. So they're always going to ask you to usually update the listing, like sanitize the listing if you want to get something reinstated that was down, but you're going to be like, well, I couldn't do that because my listing was locked because you locked it, and they'll be like, well, you need to update it, and the only way to do that is the category listing report. So, downloading the category listing report, which is basically a flat file for the whole account, updating it, and then updating the listing through flat files first. And as long as you've done that, you've raised a case previously, and you've done a listing upload, when you're on the call with seller support, you can say, look, I've already created a case. This is the case number. I've already done this upload. Here's the upload number. I'm going to stay on the phone until you fix it for me because I've done all the steps you're going to tell me what to do. Because otherwise, if you call them up, they're literally going to raise a case for you. And that's how you get stuck in that annoying cycle, is that the agent is just going to raise the case you could have raised yourself, which is really a pain in the ass.
That's really valuable. So you're basically coming to the teacher and saying, hey, I did all the homework. I've checked all the boxes. I filled out the worksheets. Now it's on you. And so that's taken from the knowledge that your team has and experience they have from actually being on the other side of that conversation. Is that right?
Yes. So you want to tell them that you've already done the work. So please just elevate me to the leadership team, or refresh the listing, or whichever thing you need to do in order to actually help me, rather than just raise a case, because I've already raised the case.
I've already done that. Yeah, that's really helpful.
Yeah.
So the second thing you mentioned, John, was reviews, right? What we see working with a lot of companies in the EU, because that's where our team is based, and we happen to have a lot of clients here, is the improvements in launching in different EU markets since the reviews have been kind of combined, across marketplaces. So if, let's say you're a US company, you have, 10,000 reviews on a product, you bring it to France, you start with 0. Well, not anymore. Now you start with 10,000. So that's made a huge difference, right? When you say reviews, is that what you mean? You mean making sure that they're meshed across the marketplaces, or what kind of reviews work do you do?
It could be that. So if that's a problem, and we deal with seller support problems, we can figure that out, why it's not happening.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's an issue, it could be something to do with, like, you may have listed and it's created a new ASIN for you, or it could be the FNSKU for some reason is not merging properly. But actually, if you're creating a variation in the same marketplace, so for example, you're in the US and you're creating different color variations, or you're in France and you're creating different color variations, and for some reason, those color variations are merging but not sharing reviews, or not merging, or there's some problem. A lot of the times, I know if you're a seller, you'll have encountered these type of problems that, like, this bit's working, but this bit's not, but I can't figure out why. So that's when we go in and, like, we figure it out, and then we solve the problem.
Those are all very interesting little tidbits. It's these small little things that make the difference in conversion rate and appearance and search indexing, isn't it? And if you don't have some of those right, that can really harm you, even though it looks like, oh, it should work. But no, there's some little thing like the FN SKU is missing or wrong, and there you go.
Something's there, yeah.
John, another question I have for you is, what used to be an issue you saw a lot and you dealt with a lot, but it's actually not that big of an issue anymore? Like, let's say 2.5 years ago when we last spoke, you were getting requests for this all the time. Your team was busy as bees, working on that. And now you barely see it anymore. It's diminished significantly. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, so brand name changes. We used to have a lot more brand name changes a couple of years ago, before Amazon properly introduced brand registry at the start of creating your account. So now Amazon, basically, you need to get a brand registry exemption or have your brand registry ready to start listing products. So it stopped people doing a lot of create it in one name and change it to another, which we used to get all the time. Because people start their business, they didn't do their trademark checks, because none of us did 7 years ago. Then they tried to get their trademark, and they were like, oh, this is not trademarkable. We're going to have to change my name on everything. And that was something we used to do. We still do it. If you need to do it, we'll do brand name changes, but not as common as it used to be. We used to have a lot of people come to us because they had finally tried to do their trademark registration and had hit the wall.
Got it. So let's, score 1 point on the board for Amazon there. It sounds like they made a process improvement that actually had a long-term impact in the burden of support cases they were getting. It's a process improvement that's helped ameliorate that. That's great. We actually had a client recently that got their brand name changed to a bunch of Japanese characters. Not clear how it happened. It only happened on a few products, and we took us a long time to resolve that, actually. So maybe we should have rang you guys up first and and asked what to do with it.
Yeah, we got a good process for that. If you have any issues.
It was nasty, but eventually did iron it out. Cool. So it's glad to hear that Amazon's progressed. Now let me ask the obvious question. Last time you were on the show, this wasn't a big thing, but now ChatGPT, generative AI, LLMs. What has changed about the way that Amazon does support? Or I guess, the second part to this question, what has changed about the way that you guys do your work thanks to generative AI and these tools?
Good question. I mean, I don't think Amazon has changed that much yet, to be honest. And we haven't seen many changes apart from the debacle a few months ago when they started auto-enabling AI titles and bullets, and people didn't realize what they were enrolling in, and they got stuck, and we had to help people change them back. And that was a nice bit of extra work for us. But no, Amazon support hasn't really changed. We've been working on different ways we can use ChatGPT. I mean, our team uses it to check the English on their responses sometimes and make sure we're absolutely perfect, because it's the best spelling and grammar checker out there.
Yeah.
In some ways, and it can help you create responses. But apart from that, we rely quite heavily on dealing with seller support, and we can't automate that because it's very against Amazon's TOS to automate messages to support because they don't want to be absolutely overwhelmed. Because if we just plugged in with it'd be simple to create just a bot-based system that raised cases automatically, but it would bury Amazon support within hours.
Yeah, and we already know that they have an issue. They're a victim of their own success, Amazon, aren't they? They already have way too many people contacting them for support services and stuff, and that's a huge cost for them, I would imagine. So yeah, if you're gonna play around with something that's like a bot or some kind of spam, you're probably gonna be out of there pretty quickly, I would imagine. They don't take kindly to that, I think. Yeah, and this is like my pet theory, so let me go ahead and like put it out there for a minute. I think a lot of the entry level support for not just Amazon, but just generally, if you call your credit card company, if you call your auto insurance, if you call whatever, it's probably going to be replaced by AI, whether it's AI that you go to a website and chat with, or probably more likely those you talk to on the phone that have a very realistic sounding voice. It navigates you through a phone tree. It can look at the hundreds and thousands of hours of recorded calls in the past and use those to help you. So I do wonder if there's a day when you call Amazon and AI picks up. I mean, we know that Amazon's been pushing AI really heavily inside the marketplace, trying to, I think, create a good narrative for the market and let people know, hey, we're at Amazon, we're cutting edge with AI. Like you mentioned, sometimes it creates extra work for you, which, hey, I mean, that's not so bad. Amazon is a company that's never afraid to experiment with stuff, right? They're always happy to throw stuff out there and try it out, even though there might be some unintended consequences. But that's my pet theory for what's going to happen eventually. But I'll be the first to hear it from you if that starts to change on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, when you share that, it makes me think that definitely on the consumer side, I think will be way before the seller side, because consumer side, if there's a mistake, it costs Amazon a few bucks and they can probably rectify it. On the seller side, you make a mistake, there goes inventory, pricing, hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff disappearing everywhere. So it's I would imagine it being built into the system before it's built into the phone system or the support system. But yeah, definitely improving their actual back end. I can see that happening before they do support. And then so it would be like back end, chat support, and then maybe, phone or direct case support later on. Because you got to be super careful. Imagine if Amazon did pricing updates or listing updates without a human being checking it.
Oh yeah, if you think of it that way, it'd be an immediate disaster. Yeah, as we know, Amazon's very sensitive about those things. If you change your price too much, your offer's not competitive anymore. You don't have the buy box now. Okay, well, if you do that yourself, you can blame yourself. But if Amazon did that for you, it sounds like a lawsuit. So, potentially dangerous.
Sound like a lawsuit in Amazon, aren't there? But actually, anyone actually be able to claim a lawsuit is a different story.
Well, yeah, I guess going up against Amazon be scary or impossible. Okay, very interesting. Cool discussion. I just think that the space is moving so fast. Maybe when we talk in another couple of years, we'll be able to we won't have to talk. We'll just have our AIs talk to each other on the podcast and then done. No need to no need to actually get on the phone.
Drink wine all day. I'll move to Asia, drink coconuts all day, and then AIs will run the business.
AIs will have the podcast. Yeah, super easy. Let me ask you another thing. So what services have you guys expanded into or changed in the last couple of years to accommodate for the shifting Amazon landscape? Like you just mentioned, hey, we got a bunch of new work because Amazon briefly for a period just enabled all these changes with AI. All right, that's a pretty good, clear example. But certainly you guys have expanded the scope of what you do. On the website, I saw a lot of different things. So what's been the big stuff that you've moved into the last 2-ish years with Amazon's changing landscape? Yeah,
so what's been really cool with Seller Candy is because we're kind of like an extension of your team. So we're a subscription-based service. So it's not like a one and done transaction. It's like we want to be part of your business and help you operate long term. So it's not really, our service is more evolved than it has, changed when we're offering different services. So as things appear, we add it to our menu, or we just are able to do it more efficiently, and our team just gets more and more skilled as time goes on. Our reimbursement service, so it was part of Seller Candy at one point, then it became kind of analogous next to it, and then we launched it as its own software, Fundify. So it went from reimbursement service to actually its own software. That was a new offering. It grew, and then we've had it its own software. And now Amazon is changing the rules in about 3 weeks' time. So I think most of these services are going to change drastically in the next month, 2 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
Because Amazon's automating a bunch of reimbursements. So it used to be you could go back 18 months and do all these different types of reimbursements. We have like 12 of them or 15 of them, and it's changing. So we can only go back 2 months, and they're moving it to automate the two biggest reimbursements, which are lost inbound and lost in warehouse or warehouse damaged. One of the two.
Okay.
And that is like a significant percentage of most of them are those two reimbursements plus 18 months to 2 months. So they're going to wipe out a lot of revenue for these companies, including us,
right,
and wipe out a lot of back refund ability for people who haven't done the claims yet. So, shameless plug, but you should check out and do your claims in the next, whenever this podcast comes out, 2 weeks.
Probably like 1 or 2 weeks. That's probably
just
a safe
do
bet.
Do it now.
Because it is the end of October, right, where this is happening, this
23rd.
change. 23rd. Oh, okay. Wow. That's really soon. So I actually was mistaken. I thought it was a 3-month window they were switching it to, not 2. But, this is not something that we offer for clients. Yeah. So it's not something I haven't focused on. But either way, from 18 to 2 or 3, it's still a huge change, right? And I have been seeing some shakeups at some of the larger refund companies out there, and been hearing a little bit of back channel from them about that. So yeah, definitely a sea change. And it's interesting that you mentioned it's the two biggest ones that are really becoming automated, right? And when you actually hear what they are, me not being someone who's dealt with this hands-on, that's just the whole point of this show, is I get to go out of my comfort zone, right? Those things sound like they should have always been automated. So it's kind of funny that these services existed in the first place, and these fringe cases were covered by services. Okay, but stuff like Amazon damaging your product or losing it or whatever, you feel like that should have been in there already.
So, I think it was probably a class action lawsuit in the waiting for Amazon. So that's probably why they did it. And if we can do it with a bunch of formulas, I'm sure they have one smart person on their team who could have built that into the software. They've just been, I guess that they just had to offset the cost of like lawsuits versus the colossal amount of team time it must take to review all these cases every day with all these service providers raising thousands of cases a day with 10 ASINs per case, because that was Amazon's limit, times all the reimbursements. So it's huge volume. They must have had hundreds of people reviewing these cases.
Or just reviewing that. Yeah, that's a lot of manpower hours to devote to that. And you said it was a 10 ASIN limit per submission. So if you had 15, you had to do 2 cases basically.
Or if you had 1,500, which you might on a big account, then it's a lot of cases.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Okay, so then that actually leads me to another question I had. You preempted me on that one. That's great about the refunds, because I was very curious about that. That is a service expansion, and then what's going to happen. But then you mentioned software. So you guys have your own software. This is a very hot term these days, like tech-enabled agency, software-enabled agency. Very appealing for buyers, very appealing to work with, because they have awesome results of their own tools. And I have a personal belief that building your own software internally is maybe a superpower that some agencies and service providers have. So yeah, tell me a bit about the software. I'm curious from my own perspective actually, but I think the audience wants to know too.
Cool. So there's 2 different levels, I think, of software integration, and we've had it since day one. For Refundify, for our refundify.io, if you need to get it done. But for Refundify, our reimbursements product, we built it from scratch. From scratch, as much as my CTO would say, is from some open source off the shelf infrastructure. Nobody actually built from scratch. We built it on AWS and a bunch of other off the shelf infrastructure, because it's way better than building it from zero. And then Seller Candies run on a combination of like top line off the shelf products all connected together. So, it's not like we didn't actually build it from scratch. It's built from a combination of, HubSpot, Freshdesk, and it all is all packaged through our own kind of custom front end. Because when we were focusing on building Seller Candy, it was all about uptime. And I was like, do we really need to rebuild an entire ticketing system just to be, ticketing? And it had some special stuff in it, ticketing system to be able to deliver the service. And I was like, well, actually, no, we can just get a custom architect to build flows through other pieces of software. Maybe I'm giving up money and in the long run of the value of the agency if this software would have been super valuable. But, for $40,000 a year, we buy the software off a bunch of very expensive providers
Sure.
that runs the back end of the agency.
Yeah, and you could argue, putting on my agency owner hat, you could argue if it's $40,000, how much are you going to pay in developer wages and time to make your own when these existing things are out there? And what you've done is just built, the glue and connections and bridges between these different things. It sounds like, which is really cool. I mean, we do some of the same stuff. We don't have a reporting platform that we've built, but we take data from a couple different tools. We use business intelligence software to link it together, and then we have ways we display it, and that's how we create reports for clients and give them live dashboards and stuff if they want. So it's similar in the fact that we didn't build it, but we customize the solution to the extent that we put it together. Yeah, but that's cool to hear that for Refundify, you said, hey, let's take these libraries, let's take that. I mean, I was at a SaaS conference just last week, and everyone's talking about this tool called Cursor AI. And it's like a tool you can use, and it basically just will code along with you, and you can tell it to, duplicate this functionality, write this, do this, and it'll write the code for you. I think that's one of the most compelling use cases for AI these days. And it made me think more about SaaS. It's very interesting, which is why I posed the question.
Yeah, I mean, friends of mine, so I got two friends. I mean, one, my CTO, he actually built it. He is a dev. But another one who's in the kind of online space in the same communities as us, was like an affiliate site guy before, and he's been building tools to help him pump out content and create things. And all he's been doing is building Python programs using AI tools. And he is not a coder at all.
Incredible.
So he used to, hire people from the Philippines or from Eastern Europe and code these things. And then he realized that he could just use the tool, tell it what function he wanted it to do, and then coach it. Coach the, like we would coach any team member, you can coach the coder, and it will change things. Oh, this doesn't work in this way. Can you change it? And it'll go, yes, sir. Immediate update. So the feedback loop is so much faster. It's like when we're coaching AI for copywriting, it might not be as good to start with, but the feedback loop is 3 seconds, as opposed to you give feedback, you wait a few hours or a day, and then
or days. Yeah.
Days. Yeah. A good operator plus AI is amazing.
That's incredible. Okay. I'd like to learn more about that. Maybe we'll talk about it offline.
See you in a week.
So a couple more questions that are rounded out, John. Who should use Seller Candy? I think last time I spoke with you, it was mostly 3P sellers, people not selling on vendor. I'm not sure if you really work with agencies much at that time. Maybe you had a pilot program for that, but now I think you guys have shifted tack a little bit, right? Yeah.
So we work with a lot of agencies. So agencies that are scaling, or agencies with anywhere really from 3 to 30 team members is our kind of sweet spot, who have account managers. They're starting to bring on account managers, and they want to empower their account managers to do more account management and less calling seller support and dealing with all of this BS on the back end. So that's a way to elevate their teams. We work with agencies. We work with sellers. We used to say, and we still do really, if you're doing more than 25,000 a month and you're looking to grow your team in revenue as a seller, then you'll get a lot of value out of Seller Candy. Smaller, you will too, if you've got specific issues that you're stuck on, or bigger as well if you just need support. But for 25 to 300K a month, and is our sweet spot for sellers, I would say.
Okay.
And then we do 1P, so vendor accounts, usually mostly for agencies, because a lot of agencies take on vendor accounts as well. Right. But if you have a vendor account, we can definitely support you. We don't have any, or we only have 1 or 2 direct vendor sellers though, because usually they use agencies or they have huge internal teams.
Right. That's been our experience too, working with ads, is they have typically a larger internal team. A bonus question for that, what differs for vendor support? Like, what's the key distinction between that and 3P when it comes to your guys' work?
I mean, different systems. So the way things get updated is just different. I would say not that much apart from the system being different. The challenge being, if you're a seller with a vendor account as well, that's when you need someone like us to bridge the gap. Because usually your seller stuff gets all locked down by your vendor account because it has priority, and then you need someone who can do both, because you'll get a lot of listings stuck, especially if they were created in vendor and moved to seller. And that was a trend, and still is a trend, moving from vendor to seller if you're a medium-sized business, because it gives you more control. And Amazon doesn't really care about vendors anymore. They just want the big guys.
Yeah, I think they've demonstrated that recently with that infamous letter, breakup letter they sent to a bunch of people essentially. And well, we have clients that are larger clients have also gone from 3P only to hybrid, right? And having both, taking advantage of the elements of both. But that's a delicate line to walk, and something, a juggling act, a balancing act they have to pay attention to.
I agree.
Yeah. Okay, John, last question here, because I didn't ask you this last time, and I'm curious because I have no idea. What is the founding story of Seller Candy? Like, how long you guys been around? How did you get the idea for it? What's your entrepreneurial path here? You don't have to give me your whole birth story and everything, but just an idea
I was
of like
born in England, 1988.
how things came to be. How things came to be. I'm curious about the story.
I was living in London as an engineer. I was a mechanical engineer back at university. That's what I studied. And I was really unhappy. And I wanted to figure out how to make money on the internet. So I was listening to podcasts back in the 2013, 2014. And I heard about Amazon, selling on Amazon. I was listening to some different podcasts about making money online. I tried blogging. I tried that stuff. And blogging was the big thing back then. And I can't write for shit. Having a swear on your podcast, but I assume there's not many kids listening to
no, it's fine. It's totally fine.
So I would want to make money on the internet. I was like, okay, I understand this. I can understand the path from launching a product to actually making money. That makes more sense to me than this esoteric putting out content and somehow somebody finds it. I mean, now I know a bunch of people that make loads of money putting out content, so somehow somebody finds it. But I understood it. I then bought ASM 4 back in 2014. I did Amazing Selling Machine. Didn't execute well at all, but it was back in the days when you can execute badly and still make money. So I launched a supplement brand in Europe amongst other products from China in the US and stuff, and the supplements stuck. So I started a supplement company. Somehow I ended up with a supplement company selling supplements online in Amazon in Europe in the Wild West.
And in Europe in those days was that's like a market that was barely even touched. I mean, even now some of the European marketplaces are fairly small, but 2015, whatever, there
was nothing. Yeah. So that was pre-PANI UFBA, pre-Amazon VAT services. I had to do it all manually.
Wow.
So I had to find a service, get it all set up, ship product to different countries. It was a pain in the ass. But because of that, I did really well. We got to $1 million in 18 months, I think, in revenue. Then it just kind of grew from there. And then I got really bored because it was like, well, what do I do now? I figured this out. I was banking the money, not reinvesting it because it was my first business. And I wanted some security. I want to take the money off the table and not have to go back to work again, ever again.
Yeah.
So I was like, if I can save up a couple $100,000, then back then it was like, oh, that would be enough for a very long time.
Sure. Yeah.
Then your lifestyle increases, of course. But from that point, I was going through a lot. I did a lot of personal development. There's another story there, but basically through that, I decided I wanted to impact more people and do something that adds more value to the world. So I started in a full service Amazon marketing agency, Ecom DNA, in 2019, and didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know sales, didn't know marketing, didn't know shit. So through the network we're a part of, I found a sales mentor and learned sales and marketing. Started selling. Again, we got $1 million in revenue. And then I was like, I don't want to deliver this business. This is a pain business to scale when you're doing everything from content to PPC to everything. And this is my first business outside of Amazon. So I didn't know anything about operations.
And services are so different from e-commerce. I mean, they're very different animals.
Learn sales and marketing and stuff and operations and people. So back in that time in 2020, I was traveling around Europe, meeting friends, and I bumped into a guy called Ian Hawley in Lisbon through a Dynamite Circle friend. And he was telling me about his business, Hub Snacks, which was a productized service surrounding HubSpot.
That's
right. This is before he came to speak at DC, which was the same year. He was like, oh, I did this. I found this business model through this guy. And he introduced me to the guy who had got him into productized services. And I was brainstorming ideas for productized service. And I was like, because he was talking about a service that surrounds a platform.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I've had 500 sales calls in the last year. I don't like selling Amazon services to everybody because some of these people can't be successful because I told them what they can achieve because their product's okay fit, but it's not a great fit for Amazon. So it's going to be okay, but it's never going to blow their socks off like they want.
You had the experience of being a seller for many years and you were able to really see into that.
Yeah. So I wanted to create a business that could make everyone a raving fan. We could scale quickly and didn't involve me in the delivery because I'm not scalable unless I hire other really, really smart, expensive people. I was like, well, what would that be in Amazon? Well, everyone hates seller support and everyone that's successful on Amazon has issues with seller support. So we got rid of all of our services, got rid of all the clients. I sold them to another agency. We get down to this one thing, which was dealing with Amazon seller support. I could hire people directly out of Amazon seller support who were amazing at doing it. and we could scale because I already built the sales and marketing engine for the agency. We just used the same sales and marketing engine to get this going, which was lucky, to be honest.
Right.
I already built it. And then we started reaching out to partners. We built amazing partnerships through people such as yourself and like 250 other partners in the agency, in the agency space and software space for Amazon. And that's how we grew so quickly. So we grew from that to like 2021, my team was focused. I got rid of all my other business stuff like Ecom DNA and my supplement business. And we went from 30,000 a month to 70,000 a month in 2021. And then it just grew from there. You know, we grew, we hired a better team. I learned more about operations and things. And how we got to here. And I'm doing this, I'm talking about this in the event next week, but more organized than that. I have a whole presentation on the same journey though.
I will definitely be attending that then. Absolutely. Yeah. I've got the Cliffs Notes version of it right now, but I didn't know that all about Ecom DNA and the supplements and ASM. So it's amazing the path that all of us have walked to get here. And some of us have sellers and then turned into service providers. Some of us have gone the other way. Some of us have like 5 businesses. I personally don't understand how people do that. It sounds like you're like me. You want to focus really well on one thing and execute on that and not get too distracted by other stuff, right? Yeah.
It's only ever really scaled quickly with focus for me.
Yeah. Cool. Well, great story, man. I look forward to the extended version coming up soon. I don't get any other questions for you. Thanks for coming back on the show and explaining what's going on in 2024, late 2024 with seller support. I learned a few things. I think the audience did too. So I appreciate you coming back on.
No, thanks for having me, Brent. And I'm looking forward to catching up in person very soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, John, if people want to find you, where's the best location to do that?
Location to find me? Well, I'm usually hanging around in
online,
Da Nang in Vietnam. I just moved here. Awesome. So if you're looking for me, there's 2 ways. One is to check out Seller Candy. And if you like the idea of Seller Candy and you actually have something that needs solving, you can just click their free consultation, I think, or no, it's talk to an expert. You talk to an expert and you can talk to me or Kelly from our team who can explain what Seller Candy is and see if we can help with what issue you've got. If you just want to learn more about technical problem solving and download an SOP that we have on how to deal with flat files and flat file errors, we have an error code guide. There's a URL. It's sellercandy.academy, not .com, sellercandy.academy.
Academy.
And you can download there. I think you put in your Usenet, your email, of course. And then we'll send you that SOP. It's a really good SOP.
Great. And, I think I'll sign up for that, actually. I think we could use that.
Yeah. Our actual SOP.
And one other point of distinction, you don't just work with 3P sellers, 1P sellers, right? You work with agencies as well. So you have pricing and a service set for agencies that want to come to you and do that. And that's an important distinction to make too, because that might be appealing for people in the audience to understand as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, work with a lot of agencies.
That's great, man. Okay, cool. Thanks, John. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, Brent. See you later.